Hello, welcome to Papa Nick's Music. I'm your host, Papa Nick Lewis, and today we're talking about Halloween. Ooh, I love Halloween. I love it. It was always one of my favorite holidays. And my original thought was, ooh, wouldn't it be nice if I could do a Halloween album ranking video? Then I realized, okay, if you start looking for Halloween albums, you're going to have, a bunch of albums by Nox Arcana and Midnight Syndicate and Alice Cooper's Welcome to My Nightmare, and then you're pretty much right up against that dead end wall. We got the same problem if we're looking for Halloween songs. You got the Monster Mash, but beyond that, you've got a bunch of stuff that's not really Halloween. It's just Black Magic Woman and Superstition and I Put a Spell on You, and these doesn't work. So we're not going to talk about music today. No. We are going to talk about movies. Movies. Today I'm going to talk about 15 really good scary movies. I have ranked them, but the ranking here is secondary. Mostly I just want to encourage you to watch 15 good scary movies. I love all of these movies. I love them all very much. They're winners. So, if you're programming your film viewing for next Halloween, throughout the month of October, you want to watch a bunch of good scary movies, here's a bunch you can choose from. Before we get into this, the subjectivity notice, I've got to do the subjectivity notice. There is no such thing as objectively good or objectively bad art. There is only art that I like and art that I do not like. There will be movies that I list on here that you don't think are particularly scary. There will be scary movies or movies that you think of as very scary that I don't even have on my list. It doesn't mean either one of us is right or wrong. It just means we have different tastes in what makes a scary movie. Much easier to do that when we're talking about movies than it is talking about music. So I've got 15 movies that I want to talk about very quickly here. But before we get into the 15, I'm sneaking in a 16th. I've got an honorable mention here. And I've got this honorable mention because I don't think of it as a particularly scary movie. I mean, it's got creepy moments. It's trying to be a scary movie. But the overall vibe I get from it is not spooky atmosphere or anything like that. The overall vibe I get from this movie is, man, this is weird. And that is 1979's Phantasm. If you have never seen Phantasm, oh man, check this thing out. It is just a wonderful late 70s B movie. It was directed by Don Coscarelli. Yeah, I'd never heard of him either. And it stars a bunch of people that you've never heard of. Michael Baldwin, Reggie Bannister. But the real star of this thing is Angus Scrimm. I love that name. He's the villain of the piece, and it is just a weird movie involving interdimensional alien takeover of the world through a mortuary. It's weird. It's a weird ass movie, and I loved it when I saw it when I was in high school, and I still to this day love it. It doesn't creep me out. It's got a couple of creepy moments, but for the most part, it's mostly just, man, this is weird. So, honorable mention, Phantasm. Okay, from here on out, we've got movies that at some level creep me out, right? That's the main thing I'm looking for here. And number 15, while we're talking about B movies from the 70s, in 1976, Dan Curtis directed a movie called Burnt Offerings. Oh, I love Burnt Offerings. The movie itself stars Oliver Reed and Karen Black as a married couple. Their son is Lee Montgomery, better known as the star of Ben. And they move into a house for the summer. They've rented a house for the summer without knowing that the house itself is haunted. And it's just a good, fun, scary haunted house movie. I'm particularly impressed with an actor named Anthony James. You've never heard of Anthony James, but you know the face. Yeah, you know that face. Anthony James was a villain in, virtually every 70s TV show and a lot of 70s movies, and he is downright creepy in a couple of scenes in Burnt Offerings. So, number 15, Burnt Offerings. Number 14. This is the most recent movie on the list. It's from 2000, so that it gives you an idea of where my taste in horror lies. This is it science fiction? Is it horror? Well, no, it's science fiction, but it's also horror. It's a good movie that crosses genre boundaries. We got another one coming, or actually a couple more of these coming up. Science fiction and horror go very well together. And this is David Twohy's Pitch Black, the movie that inflicted Vin Diesel on the rest of the world. I really like this movie. Basic story is a ship crash lands on a planet that is almost always in direct sunlight because it's part of a multi-star system. So because of its orbit, it's always got one of the suns of the system in the sky. So it's always light, except for every once in a blue moon when it gets dark, when the planets line up in such a way that it's completely hidden from both suns or all three suns, however many suns there are. It's been a while since I've seen it. And that's not an important detail. And the people who crash land on this planet, it's just their bad luck that they crash land right before it enters, the planet enters one of its dark phases, and all the monsters come out when it gets dark. And it's a lovely movie. I love Pitch Black. Coming in at number 13. This is not so much a scary movie. It's more goofy than scary. I mean, if you pay attention to the plot, it's just goofy. But it's got some really good atmospheric scenes and some really good atmospheric filming, and that's because it was directed by John Carpenter, who knows how to make things look scary even if they inherently aren't scary. And this is his 1980 movie, The Fog. I love The Fog. It's got Adrienne Barbeau, of course, playing the director's wife. It's got Jamie Lee Curtis, of course. It's got Tom Atkins. I always liked Tom Atkins. He was a very prolific character actor in the 70s and 80s. And it's got Hal Holbrook. I mean, come on, Hal Holbrook. It's got the weirdest casting. John Houseman plays an old sea captain. It's like that's weird, but it's a fun movie. It's got some spooky moments, and it's, like I said, it's very atmospheric. It looks scary. It looks scarier than it actually is, but it's fun to watch. Number 12, the first haunted house movie on the list. And I got a couple haunted house movies on here. Well, actually, Burnt Offerings was a haunted house movie too. So okay, second haunted house movie. And that's 1973's The Legend of Hell House. Stars Pamela Franklin, Roddy McDowall, Clive Revel, Gail Honeycutt, who are all staying in a haunted house trying to find proof of the ghosts that live there, supposedly, that are there. Was directed by John Huff. I'm not sure how he pronounces his name, and frankly, I don't care. And it's got a few really good creepy moments in it. I love a good haunted house story, and this is a pretty good one. Based on a novel by Richard Matheson, who knows how to write a good scary story. So, strongly recommend The Legend of Hell House. Coming in at number 11, 1941's The Wolf Man. We got to have a werewolf movie on here somewhere, and if you're going to have a werewolf movie, you're really down to two choices: either The Wolf Man that started it all, or an American Werewolf in London that completed it. And I went ahead and put The Wolf Man on here. American Werewolf in London is a wonderful movie, don't get me wrong. I love David Naughton. I love John Landis in general. But the humor element of it weakens the horror of it. It's not a movie that I watch to get creeped out. It's a movie that I watch because I enjoy the humor of it. The Wolfman, on the other hand, is not particularly scary. It's more tragedy than horror. Um, but it started werewolf movies, and it's Lon Chaney Jr. I mean, come on, The Wolfman, 1941, directed by George Wagner. By the way, forgot to mention that. I think. Okay, coming in at number 10. Can't be a Halloween scary movie list without a zombie movie, and if you're talking about zombie movies, you're talking about The Night of the Living Dead and then everything that came after. So for number 10, we've got 1968's Night of the Living Dead, directed by George Romero and starring Dwayne Jones and a bunch of other people that you've never heard of. If you are a fan of scary movies at all, you have seen Night of the Living Dead. It is just a wonderful movie. I love the little twist at the end. Broke my heart the first time I saw it, but still, it's it's rare. Well, I was about to say it's rare to come across a movie that establishes an entire genre. But then as soon as I started to say that, I realized I've got another movie coming up later that does the same thing. So maybe it's not as rare as I thought it was. But zombies have proved very popular in modern movies and novels and whatnot. And it's almost entirely due to George Romero. So, number 10, Night of the Living Dead. Number 9, we're back to John Carpenter. If we've got a list of scary movies, there's going to be a shitload of John Carpenter on there. And number 9, we're also to one of these that is blending science fiction with horror, and it is 1982's The Thing. I really like this movie a lot. It's very well made, very well filmed. It's John Carpenter, so there are a lot of really good creepy moments that just look creepy regardless of what happens in them. We've got a good cast. We've got Kurt Russell, who is one of my favorite actors. We've got Wilford Brimley before he became Wilford Brimley. He was still just Wilford Brimley. We've got David Clennon, another guy who shows up in virtually everything that has any quality that was filmed between, say, 1976 and 1985. I love David Clennon. It's got Keith David, who was also in Pitch Black. I didn't mention him up there, but Keith David. I love Keith David. It's a really good movie. Antarctic explorers who have stumbled across an alien beastie that is trying to kill them all. Love it. Love The Thing. Coming in at number 8. Okay. We've got John Carpenter again. This is a movie that's going to be way up toward the top of the list of virtually anybody else's list. And it is Halloween, the movie that established the slasher movie as a genre. George Romero started the zombies, and John Carpenter started the slashers. You can't have a self-respecting list of Halloween movies that doesn't have Halloween on it. It's just, you've got to do it. It's the only slasher movie that I actually enjoy watching. It's, I think, very well made. It's John Carpenter, so it's going to be well made. It's going to look good. Donald Pleasance does a wonderful job playing the man who is doing whatever he has to do to pay for his kids' college education. And Jamie Lee Curtis starts her career as somebody who can scream at the drop of a hat. But it's a good movie. It's got a few elements to it that it's like, do we really have to be killed immediately upon having sex? I mean, come on. There are a few tropes that this movie is almost single-handedly responsible for that bug me, but still, it's Halloween. It's got to be on the list. Coming in at number 7, if we're thinking in terms of making a list of monster movies, making a list of scary movies, ooh, scary stuff, kids. Channeling my inner Count Floyd. Extra points to anybody who gets the Count Floyd reference. You've got to include at least one vampire movie. And if I'm going to include at least one vampire movie, it's not the best, but it sure was the thing that kicked it all off. I know I'm not talking about Nosferatu. I'm talking about 1931's Dracula. Todd Browning's Dracula. Bela Lugosi is Dracula. Okay, every vampire since has either been a Bela Lugosi clone or somebody who, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, isn't Bela Lugosi, right? But Bela Lugosi is the yardstick. He is the model that every other vampire virtually has been compared to. So, number 7, Dracula. It's not the scariest movie in the world, but it's fun and it's good and it's got a good creepy vibe to it. Coming in at number 6, we've had a couple of entries from the old Universal horror franchise. We've had The Wolfman, we've had Dracula. Number 6 is a Frankenstein movie. We've got Bride of Frankenstein, one of the good examples of a sequel that is better than the first movie. Frankenstein was a good movie, but Bride of Frankenstein takes everything up a notch. I think it's a much better movie than Frankenstein. It is my favorite of the Frankenstein movies. Directed by James Whale, starring Boris Karloff and Colin Clive reprising their roles from Frankenstein, and you've got Elsa Lanchester as the titular bride of Frankenstein. Wonderful movie. Love this movie. Great movie. Add it to your list. Coming in at number 5, we're back at Universal Horror. And this one is a movie that is more creepy than scary. And that is 1932's The Mummy. The Mummy is, I think, horribly underrated because if you check out lists of the best horror movies, the best scary movies, The Mummy doesn't crack the list, and it should. It's a good atmospheric, creepy movie. It was directed by Karl Freund. I don't know how to pronounce Karl's name. Karl's descendants. It's the 1932. I'm assuming Karl is gone. Feel free to drop me a line and tell me how to pronounce Granddaddy's name. The movie is just good and creepy. Boris Karloff. Oh man, I love Boris Karloff, and he is. That lighting. You've seen the still. You've seen this picture. Yeah, that one. The way the eyes are lit and everything else is, that's just creepy. Not everything about this movie, but a lot of this movie is just plain creepy. And it's got my favorite creepy ass laugh. This is Bramwell Fletcher. I have to look up the actor's name, who awakens the mummy inadvertently, and when he sees the mummy, he just snaps, loses his grasp on reality, and just laughs. And it is creepy ass laugh. Best creepy ass laugh I've ever heard in a movie. Bramwell Fletcher from The Mummy. And based on that laugh alone, it belongs in my top 5. Number 4, probably my favorite of the classic no, I'm going to take that back because I just checked my list and I've got another one that's coming up that's better. But when we think of the traditional, like the Universal horror movies, number 4 is 1954's Creature from the Black Lagoon. I love this movie. I love everything about this movie. I think it is very well made. It was directed by Jack Arnold, and I don't know anything about Jack Arnold. I don't know if he went on to do other stuff, or I know nothing about the man. But he made a very good movie here. Stars Richard Carlson, Julia Adams, and the incomparable Whit Bissell. I love that name. Creature from the Black Lagoon has always been one of my favorite movies. It is similar to Frankenstein in that we've got a monster that becomes a figure of sympathy rather than horror, which I think is fantastic. Creature from the Black Lagoon. Big thumbs up. Okay, number 3. We're back to crossing the streams between horror and science fiction. This was a very big movie for me when it came out. I enjoyed the movie immensely, but it was also one of the first Um, there was, we all knew that this was a scary movie going in, right? The marketing for the movie was very clear. And in the opening scene, we're looking at an instrument panel on this spaceship, and a light comes on. That's all that happens. The light comes on, and half the people in the audience jumped. And, somebody screamed. I mean, it was amazing. We're not even 3 minutes into the movie, and it's already got people who are just. And this movie is, of course, 1979's Alien, directed by Ridley Scott, and is one of the scariest movies I have seen in a theater that scared everybody, right? It wasn't a movie that scared me and nobody else seemed to be frightened by it, or a movie that scared a bunch of people and I sat there laughing at it or anything like that. No, this, as far as I could tell, everybody that was in that theater with me watching Alien that first time that I saw it, everybody was just creeped out by it. It is the most successful horror movie that I have seen in a theater. And I love this movie. Stars, as you know, Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, John Hurt. Yaphet Kotto is in this movie. I love Yaphet Kotto. Oh, man. Great cast. There's not a weak link in the bunch. Great story. Movie is very well made. I love Alien. I love it just as a movie, but as a scary movie, I really love it. Okay, number two. Number two is from 1951, and it's one of my favorite old school scary monster movies, and that is Charles Nyby's The Thing from Another World, the movie that the John Carpenter The Thing was quasi-based on. They actually, both of these movies were loosely based on a novel by, I think it was I'll look it up. I had it when I started and it has evaporated. I'll put it in the trailer. The movie's called Who Goes There? Remember that? And The Thing from Another World has some really good writing, some really good dialogue in this thing. The characters all sound like normal people. There is a little bit of humor, but it's not overdone. It's a really good movie. I think a really well-made, scary movie. Thing from Another World. I love it. Also, I know that John Carpenter loves this movie because in Halloween, when Jamie Lee Curtis's character is babysitting the brat next door, and they're watching TV, this is the movie that they're watching. So, and then number one, the creepiest movie I have ever seen is 1963's The Haunting, directed by Robert Wise. A fantastic haunted house movie. I love this movie. There are a couple of scenes in this movie that even now, I've seen the movie several times, and still they creep me out. I mean, usually there's diminishing return on this, right? You see it the first time and you're scared by it. Wow, didn't expect that. You from then on, you know it's coming, but it still can scare you because it is so well done. The Haunting is one of those movies. I love this movie. Stars Julie Harris, Claire Bloom, Russ Tamblyn, but mostly it stars this wonderful black and white filmed house that is just creepy. Oh man, I love The Haunting. So, if you're looking to stock your movie watching library for next year, to gear up for Halloween, this is a list that I heartily recommend you choose from. They're all wonderful movies, and I love them all. And if you enjoyed watching this, then please consider giving a like to the video. If you are interested in finding out what my weird taste is in other areas, then go ahead and subscribe. If you subscribe, click the little bell. It makes a difference. I don't know why, but it makes a difference to the analytics and the metrics and all of that nonsense. And thank you very much for sticking around as I juggle my dice. And I hope that the rest of your day is bright. See you soon.